Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the American Masterminds podcast.
Each episode, we invite extraordinary guests who are masters of their craft. They're innovators, entrepreneurs, and of course, motorcycle enthusiasts who have made their mark in the world.
They share their stories, insights, and hard-earned wisdom, giving you a front row seat to the strategies and experiences that shape their successes.
So sit back, grab a drink, and get ready for an exhilarating ride as we dive deep into the minds of these exceptional individuals.
Along the way, we'll uncover powerful strategies, gain fresh perspectives, and explore the limitless possibilities of what it takes to be an American mastermind. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the American Masterminds podcast. I am your host, Topher Rob. We have a very different night scheduled for you here this evening.
I can't be a special guest?
Oh, you want to be a special guest?
Yeah.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, we have the most specialist of guests this evening, Mr. Rob Adams.
Dun, dun, dun.
All right, so here's my intention for tonight, Rob. I want to have, we're always interviewing people, which is fantastic. I absolutely love learning about people. But
And we've had some great guests, too.
Oh, my gosh. And we just keep getting better and better.
Yeah, the lineup into April. We're lined up into April with people.
April is absolutely stacked. It's amazing.
Yeah.
But one of the things that we don't get to do very often is we have high-level conversations all the time about business and stuff, and specifically you and I is communication.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe tonight would be a good time to let's dive deep.
Oh, that sounds great. Let's do this.
All right. So I have an issue, and I don't know. I'm usually pretty good at describing stuff, okay? But I have an issue right now. I've got a bunch of employees, and it's a communication problem. And the pattern that I'm seeing, and I don't know how to convey this message to them, but I know you'll know what I'm talking about. So these people, they have a thought. We're having a conversation, and they come up with a set word list, okay? That these are the words that they have to say, almost to the point that they can't do anything else until they say all these words. My counter to them is instead of focusing on the words that you want to say, focus on the message that you want delivered and what is the best route to getting that done. Okay, because what's more important, saying the words you want to say or conveying the message you want received? How the hell do I take this and teach it to these guys?
And that's a great question. I consider myself a pretty good or talented communicator. I think that I'm really good at it, but I do catch myself falling into the trap of having to need to say it a certain way. The more that I think about the others and their ability to receive it, I think that's when I really start to refine my message, and it takes way less energy and words.
Yes.
And I am usually too wordy when it comes to my message because I want to make sure that, and I was raised in a culture where you tell them what you're going to tell them, and then you tell them, and then you tell them what you just told them. Oh. And so that's the way that I was raised in communication, is setting the intention, communicating the intention, and then telling them what just happened and explaining that to them again and again. However, when you're delivering a message it depends on your audience. It depends on their age. It depends on their gender. It depends on their personality type.
That's kind of crazy. So I'm taking this directly from work, right?
Okay.
I have an attorney who is 63, older gentleman. Then in the same breath, I've got a 26-year-old girl and a 19-year-old girl. Then I've got the two owners are 53, woman, and 60, male. It's the same problem for all of them. So
are you trying to deliver the message all at once?
No. What I'm trying to do is get them to talk to each other in a way that they understand and receive each other's messages, because what somebody says versus what they mean versus what the other person takes away from it are three separate categories.
Oh, I see. There is no good answer to that question because I feel like I've spent my whole life, I've read books like Crucial Conversations, I've studied personality types, and what you're talking about is vastly different personality types. You might have someone that's a high D who just give me the facts, I don't need the story, or there might be someone like me that's an I that I want to know all about it, I want to know the whole story. So I study the DISC personality type.
And what is that for our guests?
DISC is there's four dominant personalities in the world as far as communicating styles, and it's more important to know how I communicate to those styles. If I can understand, I'm a high I, and they rank us. You can take a test, and they'll give you kind of a score on how high of a D you are, how high of an I. A D is someone who is very driven. They're very fact oriented. They don't have time to really don't distract me with all of the details, because I'm going to make a decision. I'm a driver. I'm moving forward. I's are people that like to be understood and like to understand. They like to tell the story. They like how it feels. It can be exciting. They use their hands a lot. I'm a high I. I got a 99 on the test.
No shit.
The person that I took the test through said he's never seen such a high I as far as a communicator goes.
Oh, wow.
Then there's the S and the C of the disc, and the S and the C, they're very much more detail oriented. I need to have a plan. The S particularly gets overwhelmed with details and gets paralysis by analysis, where the C just has to have everything kind of communicated clearly. I need to have a roadmap, and they don't feel comfortable moving forward unless there's a very strategic, well thought out plan. And so they don't do really well in ma and pa startups. They have to have structure. And so when you start to understand these types, there's actually words that are fearful for some people. If I'm talking to a D, if I walk in and I say, I need to share with you how I feel, man, yeah, I'm not going to, I don't hear anything else that you just said. But if you go into a D and you say, hey, I'm going to tell you the 3 most important things in order of importance. Are you ready? And they'll say, yes, let's go. And so it just is learning these personality types. If you're communicating with these different people, maybe the best thing to do is to teach them about typing and to talk about, let's say Steve is your attorney, and he's a very D-driven person. It's important that when the 19-year-old goes and talks to him, she has a list of the 3 most important things she needs to talk about in order of importance and ready to go. So you're going to need to be the kind of the coach in the middle, being like, well, just so you know, he quits hearing you the minute you start sharing your feelings or talking about anything other than the 3 things in order of importance. It's just understanding type, I think, has been a really huge step for me in understanding personalities. But more importantly, I know as an I overtalk T's. I drive D's nuts. They can't. I just said D. I just said D's nuts. You could edit that out.
Yeah, it's absolutely staying in.
And that's what an I does.
And we've completely lost the train of thought.
Squirrel. Whew. But the S's and C's drive me crazy because they need to know more. Help me understand why. A good example that I learned when I was learning personality types was here's a bridge. We're going to build a bridge. And an I would be like, oh, man, it could be a red bridge. And it would go there and it would look great. We should do it red because where the D is why? Why do we need it there? Well, because people are having to drive all the way around. It's adding an extra 45 minutes to their trip. Right. Okay. And S's and C's need how many bolts is it going to take? How much steel will we need? How many man hours? And what's the design? Are we going to do a suspension bridge? Are we going to all these details that just drive me nuts? And so what I've had to learn how to do is slow down and ask them questions that are important to them. And figure it out. So I don't know if there's a good answer for you, Topher, because this has taken me my whole life, and I'm still working on it.
That's fair. And somehow I have found a way. I do it. But it's gotten to a point where it's natural, and I'm finding it hard to describe. How do you read that? I don't know how to explain. You just got to know your audience.
Yeah, and you're a natural communicator. You were born communicating. You're a high I, but you're also very detail oriented. So you're kind of a unicorn because you're in the middle of. I need the details. I appreciate the details. A good plan is valuable. However, let's just go.
We got to start at some point.
This is right. Let's just shoot. Just go. Where Scott, for example, would be a great example of someone who just has to have. It's really important to him to not just to know, but to understand the knowing.
Right.
Anyway, and I kind of lump those 2 together, the S's and C's. They both kind of feel the same to me when it comes to details and moving forward and getting lost in there. I've got a client right now who's an S, and he got really into the idea. He Googled this problem and kind of went down the rabbit hole with it, and it gets to be too great where then I minimize that problem. That's not that big of a deal. The house isn't going to burn down. It's going to be fine. And that's not what they want to hear. They want to hear the fact that, well, it was built in 1957 and it's still here. And so how many of those houses burnt down initially because it was an unsafe product, and how many have lived this long? Because 1957 to now, that's a pretty good run.
It's a few years.
Yeah, it's a good run on a house. And so what I've had to learn is not to minimize the details, but to like call out the other details that are also important. Have you considered this? Have you thought about this? Is it something in specific? Is it processes that we're talking about, or is it just
because the processes all come from me. We're literally talking about, again, what I would want them to do, or what I'm asking them to do, is you got to look at who you're talking to. And it has to be the person that's delivering the message. It can't be on the person receiving the message, right? So the person you're talking to, literally taking 2 seconds and going, okay, the message I want sent here, whatever that is, the message I want sent, how is the best way that I can get that conveyed to the person so they understand the message that I'm trying to say?
So are the messages more just like informational, or are we expressing ideas?
We usually don't have problems with facts. It's more of like an idea or a concept or something that goes on. The one of them today, our head legal assistant, she had an idea of how to move this court case because of XYZ. And it turned into a fight because both sides of them, they weren't communicating as to what the problem was until I walk in there and go, wait, she's saying this, he's saying this. Guys, the answer's
simple.
The answer's simple. It's right here.
The hard part about these different personality types is they think so linear that their idea is the only reality. Their perception is the only reality. I think this is a leadership problem that will never go away. The reason leadership is needed is because this will happen always. There's not ever going to be a time where the IT department communicates clearly with the marketing department. Those two people think entirely different. Marketers think they're artists. IT, they're very structured. They're engineers. They're never going to speak clearly to one another. And so what is needed is people to come into the middle and create that lubrication of communication and make it amazing. I don't know if there is a box answer that you could just throw out there for every solution. I wish there was. Life would be a lot easier.
Well, and then you've got like the layers of communication, right? Because the other problem that you have is with all those different styles, we also have this epidemic of TikTok brain going on. Nobody has the attention span for anything.
To listen.
And between that and then they're trying to, say the words, nobody actively listens, right? They've got queued up what they're going to say next. They're not actively listening to the other person and A, B. It's not how it works. But then shrinking that down, I'm noticing like I've got to get this message. Give you a perfect example, okay? I'm coaching over here at the high school. On purpose, the concepts that I want to teach them are very complicated. It took me 20 years to develop this stuff. I had to keep refining it down to where I can give them basically one sentence. That one sentence has to encompass everything that I need them to do, whether they are conscious of what that process is, but I'm now seeing
clear
that,
but concise.
Right. So like instead, what I want them to do, give you a small example. The difference between a power hitter and a contact hitter has nothing to do with size. There's a guy, I'll give you a baseball guy. There's a guy named Jose Altuve. He's 5'5". Then there's another guy named Aaron Judge. He's 6'8". They both hit home runs. So it can't possibly be a size thing. The answer to this is it's a physics thing, okay? Lever 1, lever 2, that's contact. The difference between a power hitter and a contact hitter is the power hitter uses a third lever. It's this wrist, okay? I can't explain that all to him, not much less how to do it in your swing. We don't have enough time. I've got 2 weeks before we start playing games. So the answer is, when you go, I want you to breathe in on your load, and when you're swinging, breathe out. Okay, and what that does is if you're holding your breath, your natural reaction is you're going to hold that tight.
You're locked up.
You're locked up. So that wrist, you're never going to get that wrist. Whereas if you blow out, that wrist is naturally going to come through to it. So I had to sit down and I did explain this to him today, but that's not the point. They're never going to remember all of the X's and O's of what I just outlined. But if I drill down, breathe out when you're swinging. And it lines up everything else. And I'm finding that now to carry that over to the law firm. Law firm is supposed to be a high-level intellectual area, right?
Yeah.
And I'm noticing it's extremely bad with our clients. Okay, and I'm constantly coaching these attorneys. You have to dumb this down because you're losing them.
Without dumbing it down.
Without dumbing it down.
Yeah, because if you talk down to people.
No, you can't talk down to them. But it needs to be. You got to start talking like a ninja.
Yeah.
It's got to be a precise, boom,
Right.
one move, and you're done.
And no jargon.
Nope.
Yeah. Isn't communicating funny? I think if I were in your spot, I would think about this 19-year-old and I would say, hey, if you want to communicate clearly with Steve, this is what needs to happen. The 19-year-old, in my mind, would have a more malleable, coachable position.
She's not the issue. That's the fun part.
Right. And so I would say if you want to talk to Steve, you need to go in there with your list of the 3 things that are most important in that order. And here's what it is: Steve 1, Steve 2, number 2, and number 3. Which one do you want me to focus on? And just be like a direct delivery. Because if she's delivering more information than Steve can manage, then Steve will become emotional, and that will come these weird defenses that show up as fear, they show up as anger, they show up as these pride, all these things that really have nothing to do with the problem. And so I would always, the one that's communicating, Steve may not be coachable. The older one might not be coachable. He's been communicating poorly for 50 years.
Right.
And so perhaps he's not the one where you can be like, Steve, I just need you to calm down a little bit and try to hear. That's all you can say to this guy. But it feels to me that when I've coached people to speak up, but I had a business partner, for example, very high level D, and then I had my director of operations was a high I. And she would come in, and the minute she would open her mouth, he would roll his eyes like he would check out. And he was the guy that needed to be paying attention because he was the deliverer of the systems. You know what I mean? She had the problems. He had the solutions. He has to stay checked in. And so I would say, Debbie, 1, 2, 3, in order of importance. And the minute that my business partner would roll back and start to fidget, your conversation has ended. You've got to go and then come back another time and try again because you have lost him. He is thinking about Candy or any of the other girls at the club.
Okay, so the technique that I try to get, that I'm telling our young 19-year-old, and maybe this isn't the right, 3 bullet points, we could maybe try that. The one that I'm trying is you need to talk to him like a newspaper article. Hit him with the headline, hit him with the tagline, and wait and see if he needs more.
Yeah.
And then if he does, give him the opening paragraph.
Yep.
And then if he keeps asking for it, then you get through the whole article.
Yeah. But start with the bullet points in order of most importance. The thing that she needs to learn, though, is that when she steps into the office, she needs to say, Steve, I have 3 things I need to talk to you about in order of importance. Let's start with the most important thing. If she can start with that, that's going to grab his attention so that he's like, okay, this matters. I need to listen. Okay, and then he'll be interested. Okay, well, we got that handled. What is the next most important thing on the list? Well, we did the Johnsons and the thing in the deal. Okay, well, then and her job is to ask questions from Steve, not to give information. She's there to, here's the 3 problems. What's my marching orders?
Yeah.
Because what I'm hearing you say is he should be the problem solver.
Right.
She is the order taker.
Right.
And so they need to communicate in that order. And then you need to say to Steve, now this is what I'm going to have this gal, it's Jill, we're going to have Jill do. This is how she's going to deliver the information. This is my expectation of you. You need to listen to the problems and give her the solutions. If she has questions, then your job is to answer those questions. If there's a problem, let's figure it out. But if you can do that, like give him a system, and he'll be like, oh, it'll really fit nicely in the way his ordered brain works, where he will actually probably have more patience for her if he knows her intention is to deliver succinct, short information, and his job is to deliver the solutions. All I need is a solution. I don't need your opinion.
Right.
I just need a solution to this problem, and I'll do it.
Yeah, well, you met Steve. He'll go off on a tangent.
Yeah.
And then they've lost him, and then we get to the TikTok brain, and we have no idea what the hell was said at all.
Right. Well, then it's compounded because then she can't hear it, and he can't hear it, and next thing you know, you're up to your eyeballs in problems.
And then they get frustrated, and somebody gets mad, and now we've got drama.
Right. So I've got 3 things I need to talk to you about, Steve. We're not talking about number 1 anymore. We need to get back to number 2. Can I share with you what number 2 is? Okay, got it. Now here's what number 3 is. And then she needs to get up and go. This isn't a conversation.
Right. Get out.
Get out. Run.
Huh, that's good. I'm going to try to deliver that. It's amazing to me. I don't mean to be like, call you old. I don't feel like this was always the case. people aren't communicate. Like, this is really bad communication right now, and it's kind of across everything.
I don't know. It feels to me like this has been a problem that we've had since the beginning of time.
You think so?
Oh, yeah. I think so. And I think leadership, we talked a little bit about this during your podcast when we talked about your adventures into professional baseball. But leadership is your ability to communicate clearly.
You know, I'm glad you brought that up. I want to clear up something with you. Okay, so the question that you asked me on that, because I've watched it a handful of times at this point, the question you asked me is, we've got true alpha guys around here. Yes, and I want to clarify because we got off and then we broke away from it real fast. True alphas around, absolutely. In all of our lanes, we are leaders, and everybody is. The question you asked me was a leader of leaders, which is a different category, okay? And I want to kind of, when you talk leadership, we're talking what the help I need at the law firm here, okay? And I've got a massive problem on leadership right now, which I'd love to get into a little bit more, but I did kind of want to differentiate that. We were actually talking about two different things. How we lead in a corporate setting or a business setting or anything else. Leadership, that's what you were talking about. What I was talking about is when you get into core, high-level alpha men that all think that they're leaders, and how do you interact with them. So with that being said, glad you brought this up, because corporate leadership, okay, the problems that we're having right here, I also have a problem on that. So in the last 2 days, I've been trying to get them, and this is a new problem. I've been trying to do this for 5 years, okay? But getting them to, how do you convince somebody that is an owner that nothing here will change unless you're willing to make a change?
Man, that is a good question. I really feel like in my core that is the biggest reason companies fail, is leaders not realizing that they're the bottleneck. And maybe they're the bottleneck because they're fearful. Maybe they are afraid of growing their company because they're going to lose their control, their illusion of control. Maybe they're fearful because they think that they're doing it right, and that it's someone else's perspective of what's right isn't theirs, and so it's a problem.
Well, and then you compound a few years of it's been successful, and this is the way that it's been done, and
oh, sure,
why would we change it now?
Well, because it's gotten this far. This car has gotten you this far, but we no longer go 55 miles an hour on the freeway. You can no longer drive that speed in order to keep up in business. Business and the speed of the world has changed, and this is what's gotten us here, is the exact thing that will put us in bankruptcy. So you got to be careful that you can't bet on the pony that got you where you're going. In fact, if you have already become obsolete. You just don't know it yet. You're out of business. Your business is failing.
Yeah.
And that's just the way that the world is. And I feel like it's going to get faster and faster all the time, that you have to be skating towards the puck. That's what's that hockey player's name? Gretzky. That's what he would always say, is that the reason that I'm better than everyone is I'm skating to where the puck is going, where everybody else is skating to where the puck is.
Right.
And that's the big difference in business now. I feel like if you don't have that perspective, you are out of business and you just don't know it yet. You know what I mean? You're a dinosaur, but you just haven't quit moving.
Right.
And if that's the mentality, well, this has gotten us this far, well then, congratulations. You're a corpse. You just haven't been buried yet.
Right.
If we can get around that, and that's what you need to say. I think with Thanksgiving Heroes, if I could say, I realized this last year that I am the bottleneck. I had a mentor coach named Jim, and he called me out on it, and it's a hard thing to hear because this is my baby. I've grown Thanksgiving Heroes for the past 9 years. It's just been me, heavy lifting, pushing it up the hill, and then I got a friend that got involved the first or second year, and they got involved, and now they're helping me push it up the hill, and we've gotten to this point of how we've done it is how we've done it, and this is how it is. And if I want to continue to grow, I have to get out of the way. And so I'm not even on the board anymore. I'm the founder of Thanksgiving Heroes, but I'm not the decision maker anymore. I'm still the main influence. I'm still the main whip to raise money. I raise more money than anybody else does for this nonprofit, and love that part. But what I've realized is there's people who are going to do things differently than me, which drives me crazy. It freaks me out. I'm terrified. They're going to ruin this thing I put 10 years into. But my belief is that they're much better, and their perspective, even though it's different, even though it might look different at the end, is going to make it more healthy. I can only run so far with the ball.
Right.
It's a team that wins the game.
That's my biggest thing. Honest to God, like, everybody has a strength.
Yeah.
And you got to play to those all the time. And at leadership, the way I view corporate leadership, your actual job is to get the best and most out of every single person, and it's up to you.
Yeah. And how do I do that? Because it's not always about money.
No.
In fact, very rarely in this, especially in this generation that we're stepping into, the people that are your age and Alex's age, money is important for sure. You want to buy the motorcycle, you want to have the car, you want to do the things, but at the end of the day, it's about significance. It's about feeling like you're contributing. If Alec was making twice as much and he didn't feel like he was adding value to the place, he would quickly grow unhappy and leave.
Yeah.
And that's the truth. And that's the way most people are. Now you get those old guys in there, the Steves, where it's just about, hours times money equals paycheck. Yeah. It's a totally different mentality. And so you're dealing with more than just communicating style. You're dealing with the ability to appreciate or their perception of value.
Right. No, that, man, you hit that right on the head. Right on the head. Because that's my biggest thing. What the girls that work for us, it has really, like, you can give them a pay raise all you want. It has very little to do with it.
And it's nice.
It's nice. Thanks. Yeah, but they don't respond.
Yeah.
They just don't. Whereas the old guard of legal assistants that we had, that was the only thing that mattered.
Yeah.
But they were 50, 60 years old.
Yep, bottom line.
And then these girls, you hit that right on the head. What they want is they want to feel like they're part of the team.
Yeah.
They want to feel like they matter.
Contributing.
They're contributing.
They're significant.
And they're valued in the company.
Yes, significant.
That's what they want.
And so you have that, and then if you have this old leadership that got us to where we are from doing what we're doing, and you have your leadership is completely out of touch with the wheels on the ground. So it seems to me, and I what do I know, but it seems to me like your business has two giant holes in it that if they can't be mended, you're already out of business.
Well, and that's why I'm sitting in the middle playing referee and trying to hold those holes together.
Yeah.
To give you another one. Let me ask you this. You're a perpetual sales guy. That is you. How often do you evaluate your scripts?
Oh, all the time.
All the time.
Yeah, all the time. I still have I know what the key components of the script is. Why am I saying this? But if I can change it just to one word and have more results or even slow it down,
so
huge success.
I finally, first time in my entire life, okay, I finally got the closer to listen to me on sales stuff. Okay, we finally went through, and I had to go through and explain. We've got 2 letters that we send out. One of them is very strong, happens to be red. The other one is very kind of soft and milquetoast, and that one happens to be blue. Didn't plan it when I did it. Okay, that was not the intention, but that's what it is. That's how I got him to finally, like, there's different people out here, and you're losing them because your pitch is going way too long. They don't have the attention span. And we went on, this was a 2-day conversation that we finally brought down. I finally got him to agree to split them. Do it his way on this side, try it on my way on this side. He is now 6 for 6. Every single one of them, normally his calls take an hour, okay? Under 10 minutes, 6 for 6.
Wow.
Big shout out to Trent, by the way, because I used a lot of his stuff to try to, the way he worded it and everything, matching the Y's, and then go from there.
Yeah.
That's kind of the premise of what I used. So, and he's 6 for 6, all of them under 10 minutes.
Wow.
Which is that's huge. Now, it could be a fluke. We're only 2 days in. But my point is if this is the bread and butter and this is all that you do, and I'm asking you, how often do you evaluate? How often do you break this down? Because you're right, one word difference here.
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's a huge advantage that we have now with AI. Like, I have been using some the Chat GPT and some different things I put my script in there, and it like writes it down and it makes the suggestions, and I'm like, that is extra. Like, it's interesting that it's breaking it down, and I've been using the scripts on and off and refining them for 15 years with real estate, and so I've really kind of had my butt kicked a couple times where I'm like, hi. I don't need to say, I hope I can earn your business in the future, because of course it's in the future. Like, I could get rid of that in the future line, which I use all the time. It's a silly little thing, but it's definitely a component. Also, I have flashcards that are scripts. I watch YouTube videos of real estate agents who I appreciate their demeanor and their integrity and authenticity, and they use scripts to deliver words. A lot of it is not even like a lot of scripts. It's just getting rid of the fear words that people are triggering.
Well, and it allows you to come from a place of pure confidence. You know what you're doing. You know what you're doing going into it. So your mind is calm.
Yeah.
To me, I view that going over the scripts would be like batting practice.
Yeah.
We got to do this every day.
Yeah.
You can't just walk into the game and expect to hit a home run.
Yeah. Well, yeah, exactly. When it counts and you don't have the words lined up, you don't know how to hit the ball, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it's this is the chance. I want to be as prepared as possible. And I know that I use words like and these other words that slip in. The scripts make me feel, and then I am perceived to be more competent because I'm delivering it with authority. And I am the authority. When people talk to me about real estate, it's the largest financial decision of their life, and they don't want to talk to someone who is wishy-washy. They need leadership. They're hiring me for my leadership in this one area. Now, they're not going to call me and they're going to ask me about how to buy a car. I don't know. But when it comes to buying a house, I'm the authority, and I want to use the language that's going to instill confidence. So I think scripting is powerful. I've had agents say, I don't want to use that because it doesn't sound like me. That's the point. I don't want it to sound like you.
That to me makes perfect sense. And it makes sense in any sales realm.
Yeah.
For all the reasons that you're saying. You're going to be more confident. Okay. You are working an angle. That is what you're doing.
Yeah.
Okay. So it needs to be as precise and without, hey, I'm trying to sell you something. Here's the big red flag.
Yeah.
You want it to seem natural. You want it to seem and precise.
Yeah. And why would I create fear where it's not really even necessary?
Right.
It's already scary enough to buy a house. Why would I add extra fear? It's just my art. I love it. The problem is that I've been scripting for so long that sometimes I'll bring it into conversations with my kids, and they'll bust me. They'll be like, "Dad, don't reflect and refrain. Don't do that." They know when I'm doing it, and I'm not doing it on purpose anymore. It's just such a habit of that batting practice. Like, that's just how I hold the bat, man. That's just how I do it. And Annie is really good. She busts me on it all the time too. Like, don't do that. Don't use that kind of language. And I'm like, what are you talking about? Because it'll surprise me too. Like, oh yeah, I was building for a close, and that's why we should go see Batman rather than Barbie. Driving Miss Daisy. Oh my God. You're always selling something. I do not want to see Barbie. I'm good. How can I present that in a way that's meaningful and compelling at the same time?
That's a good point, though. You are always selling something, whether it's yourself, whether it's an idea that you have or your work, whatever it is. You're always selling something. Everybody is.
Yeah. Yeah, but I don't want to be selling. I don't want to sound like a salesman. I don't want to be convincing all the time. However, if I'm really excited and I want to see the G.I. Joe movie and not Barbie, man, I am going to sell the shit out of that. I'll buy you popcorn.
Yeah. What else do we need here?
What do you want? Or I won't buy you popcorn because I know you don't like it. I'll do whatever I have to over here. I think that communicating, if you are a dad or a mom or a husband or a wife or have a relationship of any kind, you should probably be reading a book at least once a year about communicating. How do I improve my communication skills? Because that's what it's all about. And at the end of the day, they've done the research. They talk about what creates fulfillment, what creates happiness, what creates long-term joy. And it's not the money, it's not the things, it's the relationships. If I can have better relationships, for example, the American Masterminds, the value of being a member of the American Masterminds is the relationships that I have in this, because I believe that I can go further with you than I can by myself.
Agreed.
If I go alone, I can do a lot, and I have done a lot. I've done a ton by myself. But there's points, even in my business, we were talking about this before the podcast, is I'm procrastinating on things, which I am not a procrastinator. I I will not. I've procrastinated because it's outside my scope of skill. And so I'm putting it off and putting it off when all I had to do was raise my hand and you're like, oh, easy. We could take care of that tomorrow in an hour.
Yeah.
I've been putting this off for a week. And if I could do this, this would streamline my business in ways that I can't even imagine. It'd be so great. And so it's about relationships. And if I can create better relationships by authentically communicating clearly, which is hard. It's hard to raise your hand and ask. You know, it's hard to be vulnerable sometimes. But at the end of the day, who am I hanging out with and what kind of relationships am I creating through communicating that are going to benefit not only me, but my family? And then how am I benefiting others? Like, what's this community we're creating? It's kind of amazing if you really back up and think about what we're trying to do here as far as this group of dudes. Yeah. I think American Masterminds has a lot of life lessons in it as far as the group goes because, you know, we're motivating people who are volunteers, basically. You know, if you're going to show up, it's because you like us.
Yeah.
You're not showing up on time because you're getting paid a good salary. And people I've been reached out to just today. I was reached out to by people in the club and had a really brutal, kind of a hard day. And it's just really valuable. And I think that's happened. I've been put in this position because of my ability to communicate. What I'm trying to say, I guess, is how can I communicate more clearly is always my question. I've been told by one of my mentors that the quality of life that we lead is directly related to the questions that we ask.
That makes perfect sense to me. It really does. Because our tool to interact with one another, and everything that you do is an interaction with one another.
Yeah.
It is communicating.
Yeah. And am I asking questions? Am I getting the information I need in order to understand you more clearly? Because I understand my message really well. And I think that I communicate my message really well, but I could be wrong.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? Because the way I communicate is big energy, big words, and I scare the hell out of people. I'm not for everyone. So tremendous amount of value in being around like-minded people who will give you the time of day to listen to the message. Do you know what I mean?
Well, that is a big point. I mean, you want to cheat any communication, become a better listener. That's the actual easiest answer.
Yeah.
Listen.
Yeah.
Actively listen to what's going on.
I've been trying to get better at that because when I slow down and I try to think about what it is I want to know or understand, I'm thinking about the next question while you're talking. And that means I'm missing the point. I've been working on that for a long time. One of the questions I like to ask, I go to parties all the time, and I used to ask the oldest guy in the room, which more often than not now is me. I don't know how that happened. But I'll ask the oldest person in the room, man or woman, I'll say, tell me something true. And they're always like, what are you talking about? Ah. And I'll just say, tell me something true. You've been around a long time. You've learned some things. And it's amazing what will roll off their tongues. And now I've got some people I've met at parties, and I see them at the bar or the whatever, you know, and they've been thinking about it.
Right.
And they'll be like, hey, Rob, hey.
I've got an answer.
I got something for you. I'm ready this time. And it's interesting, and I like to ask that question at the club, at the gym. Those old guys at the gym. What's the gentleman we were talking about? Ken would be a good one to be like, tell me something true, tell me something good, and like have him, because he'll mine on that.
Oh yeah.
All day tomorrow, and then the next morning he will have a nugget. And I don't want a big story. I don't want to just like tell me something true.
Yeah.
It's powerful. I had a guy, he was like, he had to be in his 70s, and he goes, here's something that's true. He's like, Rob, you don't know shit till you're 50.
Oh.
Yeah, that's what I said. I was like 39, 40, pretty smart, successful business, had my charity going, like doing okay with my family. Like I got it going on. I know some stuff. No. Mm-mm. And then his point was, think about what you've learned from 20 to 30. How much have you learned, Toph?
Oh my God.
Compared to like 20 to 30. It's crazy how much, and then 30 to 40, it's exponentially grows more. And I swear to God, from 40 to 50, I've never learned so much in my life. Never learned so much. And I feel like I'm learning more and more. And I remember being a young man and almost like looking at these old guys like, nah, they're not relevant. They don't know anything. And the truth is those guys know what's up. Like they've got these, they might not know a lot, but man, they know something. They've learned some stuff.
Oh, absolutely.
The hard way. You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know, it's a little interesting that in my generation would be the first one on this, that the previous generations didn't have. Technology, the way we communicate in my lifetime has changed so rapidly
Oh, yeah.
that we're already kind of conditioned. New technologies come out.
Yeah.
We adapt like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're constantly, like in my mind, you say that, and I know my parents, the previous generations, all of them are stuck like that. Actually, Alec, if you want to chime in on this, the us adapting to all these different technologies, like every day, I just assume that there's something else that has to be learned.
Yeah.
Because it changes faster than I can actually keep up. If I am looking at this problem, these 4 problems over here change so fast that by the time I look back, they're gone.
Yeah, yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
I think that what's lost in that, which I think you're absolutely right, I think that you guys are learning at an exponential rate that's is unprecedented in the history of the world. The problem with that is that you're not learning you're not standing on the shoulders of those who have learned before you.
Yeah.
You're adding more, which isn't always good. More isn't good. The volumes of information that we have out there, amazing. Not all of it's good. It's just more. And I think there's a tremendous amount of value in where before I'd have to go and talk to Ken and be like, man, I don't know, how does this work? And he would get out the tools and put on his coveralls, and you would have to sit with the guy and watch him change the brakes. You couldn't Google it, or YouTube it. And I think that's lost. I think that learning is amazing. I just think that learning without value is what's happening right now.
That's a very good point. That's a really good point. Sorry we changed real fast. Did you have something you wanted to add on that? No? Okay. The kids that I'm teaching, right? They don't have the respect because they can go to YouTube and they're fact checking anything that I say in real time.
Yeah.
So the respect of having somebody, like if I was in that same age and you had a pro guy come in I would have dropped everything. I would have been hanging on every single word that he possibly, tell me more, whatever it is.
Yeah.
But these kids, like, they're fact checking me on YouTube during practice. You know what I'm saying? It's like, I never did that. You'd learn from them, take what you could from it, and move on to the next.
Yeah, yep.
It's interesting.
Or take what you liked. You take what you liked.
Yeah.
You could glean what you wanted from them. Yeah. Isn't that funny? It's a crazy thing with the direction that we're going. I was listening to a podcast, and this guy was talking about how I'm going to be my generation will be the last generation that knew what it was like pre-internet.
Oh, man.
Pre-internet time to now. Like, it's like talking to those people that's like pre-airplanes. Like, I remember the first time I flew in a plane, like, God, you're old, Grandpa. I'm becoming that guy where I remember a period of time where you couldn't just look it up.
Yeah.
It wasn't at your fingertips. It's so easy now that we almost forget that all I have to do is say, hey, Google, and it will tell you the temperature of the air in Peru. It's right there at your fingertips all the time, where before I'm going to have to go to the library. I'll get back to you on that,
No kidding. Well, shit, just to find a phone number.
Right.
You had to know the alphabet to find the phone number.
Right.
And be near the book.
And this will make me sound old, but I missed that time when I wasn't always readily available for everybody.
I agree with that.
There's something about being able to put my phone down that I find disturbing. Like, oh God, where's my phone?
Yep.
What is that? Like, what do I need? Why do I need to be readily available to strangers all the time, where before I would have to call and leave a message on your phone, and then when you got home, you may or not check your voicemail.
Right.
You could if you wanted to. You don't know. If you called and no one answered, well, then you would just call back later. There wasn't like this whole, like, I called and left a message and it sent you a text and an email.
Right.
No, it's just like this communication is intense. I miss that a little bit. I miss kind of having that privacy of my mind, because I'm hooked to my phone from the second I roll out of bed till the second I go back to bed.
Well, and the hard part with that is it's like, if you're not that way, you're at a disadvantage somewhere.
Yeah, you're obsolete.
Right.
You're missing out. And that's the impression. So I have to wonder, is that true? Do you think that's actually true, or do you think that is cultural?
Oh, boy, I think it's a tough one. I really do. Because in the same breath, somebody else is willing to sit on their phone and do all of that stuff as well.
Be available.
So if it's a competition for competition's sake,
Yeah.
okay, that's where business is being done.
Yeah.
If somebody's willing to do it,
They answered first.
Yep.
They win.
they win.
Yeah, speed to lead, baby. It's a thing.
But I agree wholeheartedly with you. Like there's no delay in anything, and I
Yeah.
do think it was better. You wanted to write a strongly worded email, right?
Yeah.
Well, you had to sit down and write it out, and then you'd have to go through, and you'd have to put a stamp on it, and you send it in the mail,
Yeah.
and
Wait.
Like by the time you did all of that, do you really want to send
Yeah.
it?
Am I really that mad?
Whereas a lot of stuff, I'm angry,
Yeah.
and then 2 hours later you go, damn it, why'd
Yeah.
I do that?
Yeah, it's nuts. It is nuts. I was listening to another podcast. A guy was talking about how I'm offended is not an argument.
Say that again?
That I'm offended is not an argument. Like
No.
people are arguing back and forth on facts and matters, and well, it's because I'm offended. Well, that's actually not an argument. That doesn't matter.
Could you imagine going back to World War II era
Yeah.
and trying to explain,
Yeah.
well, so what?
Yeah. Or what about the United States post Vietnam, where people were mad that they were angry at the troops for the decisions that the leadership was making for the troops, and these young men were going over there, and it was post World War II Korea era where they were going over because they loved the country.
Right.
They weren't going over there to kill babies.
No.
But then they were coming back, and it's just like, that's offensive.
Yeah.
It's offensive. But man, we made it through that period of time because you're being offended. It was okay. It was okay to be offended. It was okay to have an opinion. And I delete posts all the time on Facebook because I'll put something up there. I put one up recently about conspiracy theories, and man, it took off. And I had to delete it because people were getting offended, and I don't want that in my space. I want a space of positive energy.
Sure.
Positive message. And we're just so quick, I think, as to your point, like to type in something angry and say I'm offended, or the quickest thing that we're doing now is going to name calling, which I think is also not an argument.
No. Well, I think try this one on. Your thoughts used to be thoughts, and now you can put your thought out to everybody, and then other people are going to have thoughts on that. And this all used to take place in your head, and there was filtering processes,
Yeah.
and you were allowed to have that
Yeah.
quiet space in your head. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, to think your thoughts.
Right.
Now your thoughts are send.
Send.
Yeah. I'm going to do a video on that. Yeah. It's a crazy thing, this internet. Have you ever seen, what's the documentary that they did about the internet or about social media?
Oh, what was that called? Social.
Dilemma.
Yeah.
The Social Dilemma.
Social
Do you remember
Dilemma.
that?
Yep.
At the end, it had like the guy that started.
That was all of them. They had all the original heads, and they're
yeah.
like, I wouldn't let my child anywhere near this.
Yeah. What?
Yeah. Like the people that built are like, please,
Yeah.
listen to me.
Yeah.
This is banned in my house.
Yeah, we don't do this.
We
in my
don't
home.
do this.
The other thing that I thought was interesting is how they all admitted that we're the product. If you're getting something for free, you're the product.
Yep.
And I thought, how am I the product? And so now every time I see something come across my feed, I'm like, wait a minute, I'm the product.
Yeah.
It changed my perspective. I use social media. I love it and I hate it. I love social media because it's helped me build a nonprofit that does a tremendous amount of good. And I hate it because I spend a lot of time, I think it's a natural place for me to worry about what others think about me.
Yeah.
And it's not healthy, and I've spent a lot of time, like, that's really none of my business what Topher thinks about me. If you choose to like me or not, I'm still who doesn't determine my value.
Right.
But we are so locked into that where I see my 15-year-old, she has no perspective of who she is without the social media filter. She doesn't know if what she's doing is funny. She doesn't know if what she's doing is correct. She has no moral compass because it's all based on the dopamine hits of people responding, liking her posts, her little TikToks and different things like that. And I love my daughter, but she is in for some trouble because my perspective of really wanting people to like me was just, like you said, it was in my own head.
Right.
Where hers is, it's right out there. And
then
she's a 15-year-old girl. Can you think of a more terrifying person to have
Social media?
social media? My gosh.
No, I agree.
You're having a daughter, right?
Yeah, thanks. That was actually my next question. Do you think the pendulum will swing? Because, like, on a very serious note, going into this, okay, now we'll obviously this changes so fast. If it was today and I had a 10-year-old daughter, you're not having a phone, you're not having and and I would sit her down and say, I know that this is going to be a problem. This is for your protection, okay? It's not necessary. It's not.
I think that angle is troublesome because, if you want to make something attractive like sex, then say just no sex.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to make something attractive, don't smoke weed. It's not okay. You can't smoke weed. That makes it more attractive. They're going to get weed. They're going to get sex. They're going to get social media. Our job as parents is to say, you do realize that you're comparing your inside life to their outside life on social media. You're feeling inside, and they're having lunch. They're on vacation again. They're in the nice car. That's their external world, and you're comparing your internal world to their external world. Can you see how that's problematic? Our ability as parents, leaders of these giants in the future, because that's what my daughters are, is to help them think more clearly about what it is. If I tell them no, it becomes more attractive.
What do you think about framing it to them that this is, because it is, to us, the way that we use social media and the people that are successful, it's a business.
Sure.
This is a work app.
Yeah.
And
How is this serving you?
Right.
Who's the master?
And that's a good one.
Because if you feel like, and also I think that it's good to set some healthy standards. For example, you shouldn't eat the whole bag of M&Ms.
Yeah.
That's bad.
Use your fingertips.
Use
not,
your
not the whole palm.
Yeah. Eat from the top of the hand, not the bottom. That's me and popcorn. The thing with the kids is, like, I don't mind if you're on social media, but you've been on all day. How do you feel? Like, spiritually, how do you feel right now? How do you feel emotionally? Do you feel good? Do you feel happy? Do you feel like you feel healthy? How do you feel physically? Do you feel like you have energy? Do you want to go out and do things? This is exposure to a toxic substance that if you do it over a certain period of time, these are the results. How do you feel? Our job is to create consciousness around the space. It's not to stop. Do you get what I'm saying?
No, I totally do. I really do.
It's okay. I've let my kids binge on ice cream, and I'm like,
how do you feel now?
How's that feel? I feel terrible. Well, maybe a little bit would have been better. Like we could have just had a bowl instead of the whole bucket.
You were leading that charge, weren't you?
Oh, yeah. I love a good bucket of ice cream. This is how I learned. I ate it all day, Dad. I love those kids, but the fact is that they're not the same kids as we were.
No.
And I think that my folks did a lot of, like, thou shalt not, which created a ton of interest in those things that were taboo.
And now we got a motorcycle.
Now we have a motorcycle, yeah. Yeah, watch out for girls. Stay away from the girls. Stay away from the girls. Well, I'm a huge fan of girls.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a problem. And so that's just the way that it goes. I also believe that our kids, we are only parenting our kids till they're about 9.
Really?
Or 10, maybe.
You've got that much time to, like, lay the foundation, and then once that's built, it's off to its own.
Yeah, then all you're doing is reminding them of the lessons. You remember integrity? You remember what it was like to have discipline? Do you remember these things? You remember what it was like to feel happy and to do those things? And so our job as parents, and I've read a lot of books about being a parent because it's important to me. It's important that I do it well, at least as good or better than my folks did.
Sure.
Better, I hope.
Yeah.
And so my job is to get them to that point. But as I've seen my daughters step into that 11, 12, 13, those ages, all I'm doing is playing goalie now. And I'm asking those questions like, wow, you stayed up all night on the sleepover? How do
you feel?
How do you feel? Because we still have to get things done.
Right.
The consequence is
you're going to be tired.
You're going to be tired. You're going to feel like crap. But there is no, I'm just going to, no. You still have to do the things you've committed to do. Because that's the way life works. And so I really feel like you have that period of time, and it's really very important. The problem with that is as young parents, I spent all my time in survival mode, and I didn't get to spend the time with my kids like I do my younger kids. Now that I'm older, I have that opportunity to like really help Z put on the right perspectives that perhaps Mariah didn't get that opportunity because I had 4 jobs.
Right.
I was gone all the time. So that's really important. That first 10 years, you know, what do they want? Who are they? Defining that personality, giving them their non-negotiables. It's a big deal. I think that if you can do that, then when you get to the point where you're at your office and you have that older Steve and that younger girl, they understand more clearly the value of communicating and slowing down and making those words happen because they've been given a foundation.
Sure.
But what's happening now is we're taking our kids and we're putting in front of the TV, and we're letting Disney raise them.
Yep.
And we're letting
whatever's on the iPad.
Yeah, whatever's. Have you been on YouTube recently?
Oh, yeah.
Here's what happens: is I've got a 5-year-old, and she has access to the TV, which is streaming, and she gets on YouTube, and I'll go work, and I'll come back and just see what she's watching, and I don't like walk up and say, "Hey, what are you watching?" I'll stand behind her and I'll watch, and there is some crazy shit that's available to my 5-year-old just at the click of a finger, and it's a spiral hole because YouTube is built on those algorithms, and so if she clicks on this, then away we go. And I cannot believe the stuff that's wildly available
on the YouTube Kids.
It's crazy, the messages that, and I've gone in and I'm like, you can't watch this anymore. And it's just like it's a children's cartoon. It's teaching these kids to be disrespectful and thoughtless and mean and not to share and not to love. Like,
I was just having this conversation with them, like literally last night. I don't know where the line is, but kids movies used to be kids movies.
Yeah.
Okay, and you could watch them as adults, and it's a kids movie.
Yeah.
Where did all the messaging in it?
The Simpsons.
You think it was The Simpsons?
Started with The Simpsons, yeah. Because that now I watch that show as an adult, and I'm like, I missed that altogether. Homer, that guy, I'm a lot like him. Yeah, it's interesting. It's interesting how things have changed. Have you watched SpongeBob lately? Like the episodes you watched when you were a kid?
No, I haven't watched it at all.
Try it on. Just watch a couple episodes, and you're gonna be like, "What? What?
Seriously?"
Yeah. There's messaging in there all over the place where you're just like, "Holy sandy bottom! That squirrel was sassy."
Huh?
There's some stuff. Yeah.
You know
Mr.
this?
Yeah, Mr. Krabs is kind of a racist. It's amazing. It's amazing what we watch, and I'm just like, wow, that just seemed like a funny little. No, there's no way around it. There's no way around these stories, but it just is subtle. It's subtle where it's at. Disney, I won't let Z watch Disney anymore without me watching it with her.
I've been paying attention to that recently.
Disney has an agenda.
Yeah.
That
it seems like Monsters Inc. was really like the
end of the pure messaging.
Yeah.
There's some stuff going on in Disney. I don't know who's making decisions up there, but I don't think my kids should be thinking about that kind of stuff.
No.
Not yet.
No.
They can.
Can we please go back to Princesses and Dragons?
Yeah, give me a mermaid or two, for gosh sakes. Yeah, it's crazy what's happening in the world right now. So I heard a story about one of the earliest Sumerian writings, which is the earliest writings that we've been able to find in our history. Mm-hmm. And the writing, because the first writings were only for accounting. It was just numbers. The second writings were people like starting to do more governmental stuff.
Sure.
There's a gentleman that writes on this scroll, I'm worried for my children's future because of, and he like makes kind of a list of things. And this was thousands of years ago that this gentleman was worried for his children's future because they were softer. The messaging wasn't good. You know, the world was headed in a direction he wasn't comfortable with. This is a reoccurring theme that parents have been facing from the beginning of writing, that we are a weaker generation, and that we are, and I hear all the time, more and more often, that good times create weak men, that create bad times, which create hard men, which creates, here we are in this cycle of prosperity cycle, as they call it. I think this has been going on for a long time, and it's just our job to be better at it and to stay ahead of it. There's nothing that we can do to keep my children from watching SpongeBob because it's hilarious. It's a great show, but there just is this constant vigilance that's necessary. But is it more necessary now, Toph, than it was thousands of years ago in Samaria?
Well,
when the Egyptians were sneaking in here and telling our kids stories, those jerks.
That's true. I don't know. But by the same token, it's the access to information that's going on right now. This is actually unprecedented.
Yeah.
This hasn't existed. Because at the end of the day, 30 years ago, you could move towns, and the entire narrative changed about everything.
Yeah.
There was 2 channels on the TV, okay, and it was the news, and God forbid if the president was speaking because there was nothing else on.
Yeah, he's on every channel. I remember those days. What about the end of programming? Do you remember what that was like?
With the end of programming, what do you mean?
At the end of the day, it used to have a deal on the TV that would say, "This concludes today's programming," and there was nothing on.
No. There were actual channels in Wyoming that were still like this.
Yeah, and it just had like a picture of a KSL or whatever it is. You know what I mean? Yeah, those. That's what we need is an end of programming. I feel like we're headed in that direction a little bit. You were talking about something that I thought a lot about. That we're at the end of. We're at the end of. How did you say it? We're at the end of standard news. How did you say that?
Oh, the I don't remember how I said it, but yeah, I think it's all changing.
With the Tucker, is it Tucker Carlson, who did the interview of Putin, and how that is actually kind of like word for word. This is what happened. There's nobody sharing their opinion about what happened. It's
right there.
You listen to it yourself and make your own decision. Feels to me like news is going to become more raw. That we're looking at like what's happening in Palestine, what's happening in these areas. We're getting direct feeds from those areas because I don't know. I don't know if Fox News is giving me the straight dope or CNN is giving me the straight dope anymore. It's kind of
it's independent media has all sorts of advantages. Like this is my phone. There's what happened.
Yeah.
Right.
Watch
this.
So
independent journalism, or not even journalists, citizens filming what's going on is oftentimes the best news.
Yeah.
It never gets to the actual news cycle.
Yeah.
And I think that and it's not one, it's literally all of the major news outlets.
Yeah.
I think they're done. I really do.
I've heard that they're all owned by basically like
this, like 2 corporations.
2 corporations owns all of the which is bananas to think about.
But their numbers and whatnot, like by an example, Tucker, I don't care what your thoughts are on him, right? The interview he did with Tate, the interview he did, those 2 videos did more views than Fox News does in an entire month of programming.
Yeah.
It's wild.
Well, I watched the whole Putin thing. It was 2 hours and...
Same.
I watched it word for word, the whole thing, and there was a translator involved. It's very difficult for me to listen to a conversation that has lag. Like, give me the facts, man.
Okay, is that not cool, though? Whoever Putin's translator is,
Yeah.
he's doing it almost.
As fast.
Almost. It's that close.
Yeah.
I thought that was really cool about that video.
Incredible. The thing is that I had a perspective of the Russians. I was raised in the 80s, Cold War.
Rocky 4.
Rocky 4, yes. And The Hunt for Red October.
Yep.
And all of the video games, you know what the bad guys look like?
Russians.
All
of them.
Then there was this weird shift in video games where all the bad guys look like Middle Eastern guys.
Yeah.
There's been a shift of who the bad guys are, and it was interesting. It's the first time I've ever listened to the Russian president and thought, man, that's a solid point right there, without having like the bias of the enemy. And I had that bias. I was thinking about that, like, what's this dude's angle? But the way he delivered his idea, the way that he communicated it, I thought, that kind of makes sense.
It's really hard watching that, not to go, okay, Putin is at least smart. He's wicked smart.
Yeah.
Okay, I don't understand. But here, speaking of all that, here's one for you. It's the programming that we have. Who beat Hitler?
Who beat Hitler?
Who actually defeated Hitler?
Well, it was a combined effort, wasn't it?
If you go back and look at actual history records, it was the Russians that did.
On that front.
On that front,
Yeah.
They're the ones that win it. Growing up, Team USA, back-to-back World War champs.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, we won the Pacific War.
Right.
But the Russians were the ones that actually pushed in and got to Hitler.
Yeah.
I didn't, in my I didn't even. It wasn't until that interview, one of the comments or something after, and I went, "Wait, what?"
Yeah.
And I went and looked it up, and I'll be damned.
Huh. Interesting.
It's really crazy because growing up, I was a huge Rocky fan, obviously. Yeah, the Russians were the bad guys. There really wasn't. Here's another one for you that's kind of interesting. If you watch any baseball movie ever, there's a bad guy too. Who is it? It's always the flippin' Yankees, and everybody hates the Yankees unless
really?
you're from New York, or it's the Chicago White Sox. Those two.
Those are the two
Those
bad
are the
guys.
two bad guys.
Huh.
Which is wild.
That is wild. I've never considered it.
Because the Astros were caught for actually cheating. They're not the bad guys in anything.
Yeah.
It's the Yankees and the White Sox.
Go Astros.
Yeah, well. Hey, if you ain't cheating, you ain't trying, you know? Yeah, they actually were cheating with a garbage can from the outfield, and they would beat the garbage can, pick up the sign, and beat the garbage can, and that's what they were doing. Wild. It's just wild. That whole story is absolutely crazy.
Interesting. I thought you were going to tell me about an emery cloth or something like
No,
that.
God, it was way more simple than that.
Huh.
Yeah.
Crazy.
But they were picking up pitches and relaying them into the batters.
With the beating of the trash can? What?
Yeah.
Huh.
Wild.
I don't know that much about it. That's crazy.
Well, if you can get that information to the hitter and he knows what pitch is coming, the game gets 50% easier.
Yeah, because it's going to be a curveball.
Right.
Breaking
I wake up.
Yeah.
Or wait back.
Yeah. Interesting. Well, in the back to communicating, the last thing I want to say in this area about communicating is there's tremendous amounts of books and podcasts and YouTube videos and anything that you can use that you can listen to all the time. The thing that the shift that happened in my life was that when I realized that I can only communicate in my personality type, I can only communicate with about 40% of the population. And so if I wanted to increase my ability to be successful in closing deals or into communicating my point, I needed to learn how to communicate with the other 60% of the population who doesn't communicate like me.
Right.
It doesn't matter how I like to be communicated with.
Right.
I had to put that away. This is my preference on how I like to talk. And once I started doing that and learning these personality types and learning communication styles, it kind of became a little bit of a game.
That's what that's funny you put it that way. That's exactly how I feel about it. I like thinking about it like this is strategies. These are plays.
Yeah.
These are my tools that I have.
Yeah.
And they create this mix to get my message across.
Yeah. Or when you start talking to someone and you realize, oh, this is their personality style. This is their type. And so if I use these words that make them feel comfortable and confident, those are their power words, or I use words that are fearful, I'm going to try to stay away from those words.
Right.
Just because here's where I'm headed with that is it's important that when you start to learn these skills that you use your powers for good. That whole Spider-Man.
Oh, yeah.
That Spider-Man thing.
What's that book? The 48 Laws of Power?
Yeah.
Yeah. Like, you can read that, but you better go in there with some reverence.
Yeah.
Because this is powerful stuff.
Yeah. Yep. And if you use it in any other way, it comes across manipulative.
That's exactly what it is.
And if you are being manipulative, you don't have to be a communications expert to feel like you're being manipulated. Mm-hmm. This is a basic feeling like I feel gravity holding me in my chair, right? And so you have to be very careful about this because if you really want to ruin relationships, is you use these powers for other than good.
Right.
And I want to put that in there. Become scientific about it. Make it a game, but do it in a way where you're doing good. There's so much good that needs to be done, and if you have an opinion because you don't want to watch, Barbie, I kind of think that's for good. I really believe that less people should probably watch Barbie.
That's fair. I get it. Yep, you got a point.
And so lean into it and become an artist with your communicating style and connect with other people at a higher level in a way that is going to make you have the relationships you need to create what I call fulfillment in life. And fulfillment only happens through good relationships, friendships, and those long-term marriages and all the things that will be benefiting you if you can communicate better. Take your time. Lean into it. If you don't feel like it's important, then you won't know the quality of life that you're leaving behind because you haven't tried hard to communicate more clearly with others.
That's powerful. That's very powerful.
Don't you think that's the truth?
100%. 100%. And to your point, can't stress enough, this is the highest levels of tools and weapons. Okay,
Yeah.
it really these are weapons, and
Yeah.
if you use them wrong, you're going to do real damage.
Right. Right. If I can communicate a point and stay calm, wow.
Wow. Yeah.
How cool would that be? Because a lot of people lose the first thing that happens and that breaks down communication is they become emotional about
Right.
their message.
Right.
Yeah. And I over communicate sometimes and have to slow down and say, okay, they got it.
That's a big one.
That's a tough one for me because I like to tell them what I'm going to tell them, and then tell them what I told them. It's exhausting, but sometimes necessary in order to create vision, sometimes necessary in order to create direction that's compelling.
Sure.
Let's charge this hill. Here's why.
Right. Right.
I say that as we wrap up, Topher, because I want to let everyone know that I'd like to include a reading list with this podcast of books that has helped me become a better communicator. But I would also like to ask our audience to share books that they've read that
Sure.
are meaningful. I'm always learning. I'm always looking for the next best book. I'm reading a book right now that is really the Who, Not How book by Dan Sullivan. Amazing book. Amazing. It's very timely. And it's amazing to me that here I am at this age and I'm still just like, wow, that's so cool. But it's helping me communicate the idea that I need help and I need these relationships in order to be successful. And so please share this podcast. If you find it interesting, please comment, share the books that you're reading that have made a difference in your life. Always follow us because we are always looking for more audience that we can share our message with. And if you have something you'd like to hear us talk about, please send in some feedback. We'd love to go down that rabbit hole because Topher and I, as you can clearly see, have a tough time talking about anything.
Yeah, it's so hard.
Yeah. Thanks for tuning in.
Thank you.